ready to go.
Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. Around here, we always say it's always the carburetor. And the truth of it is for small engines, when they have a problem, probably 90% of the time, it is a carburetor problem. And I tell everybody that if you don't have a lot of mechanical experience, go ahead and buy a carburetor and a kit that has all the little assorted extras that you need. But today, we're going to go ahead and break our own rule, and we're going to rebuild one. So I've got this Poulan Pro. It's currently a pole saw, but it could be a weed eater just as easily. The only difference between the pole saw and the weed eater is what they stuck on the end at the factory. It's the same exact engine. So let's have a look at her. And all you new people out there, go ahead and subscribe. It's free and we appreciate it. So let's get started. Okay, let's get started on this. I put you a little bit higher than normal. I figure I want to try something different. I want to see if people like this angle. So the first thing we're going to do is take the carburetor off the machine. In the middle of that, we're going to go ahead and empty the gas tank. This particular one's got studs holding the carburetor on. Some people like it when they have bolts, some people like it when they have studs. And this is what I'm referring to when the stud, rather than having a bolt run into the engine. Personally, I just don't care. One's the same as the other one. I didn't see an air filter in that one. I'm not loving that. But I already took a look inside the engine, and the cylinder looks really good. So now we're going to go ahead and drain the fuel. And we want to do that before we take the fuel lines off. Because if you've got fuel in the system, when you pull the fuel line off, it's going to kick gas back at you like there's no tomorrow. Let's get the ultrasonic started and warming up. Come on, buddy. Sometimes these pop right over the edge and sometimes they don't. There we go. Now it's a little bit different on every weed eater, but the theory is 100% the same every single time. So there she is, our broken carburetor. So let's go ahead and pull her apart, and then I'll toss her in the ultrasonic and get her cleaned up. I put you a little higher than normal this time. I raised the tripod up about a foot or so, maybe 2 feet, because I think I can give you a better angle that way. You can see what I'm doing a little bit better. I'm hoping I've got a kit for this bad boy. I pulled the one out that I'm pretty sure matches. I'll show you how I pick the kits out in just a second here. Once you get the carburetor broken down, you look, there's a little number right here on the side of the carburetor. Let me figure it out so I can show it to you. And there it is. Little number right here is the number you're looking for. And this one in particular, it says W50A. And that tells you it's a 50A carburetor. And that's what you want to get to replace it. Now I'm going to take this, and we're also going to take this and we're going to run them through the ultrasonic and get them all cleaned up. So we'll be back in about 20 minutes. Now that we've got that all done, let's go ahead and get her back together. Now I've got the old parts here. If you listen to it, I'm holding that up to the microphone so you can hear it. The metering diaphragm is making all sorts of little noises, which are not normal. Let's get our gaskets back on. And keep track of what order they go in, because you've got the gasket, and then you've got the the other gasket, I guess. And if you take lots of pictures, this isn't that big a deal. If you have to do it a few times, then it's also, again, not a big deal. But the first time you do it, it's not real obvious. Now we're going to use our fingers Oh, that feels really stiff. We're going to have to take a look at that. We'll use our fingers to get that together. Primer bulb looks okay, so we're going to keep it upside down. We do that sometimes. Come on. You go there, you go there, and now you go there. There we go. Now let's put our little screws in place. And if you do what I do, I use power tools all the time on these. Make sure you've got a variable speed that you're really used to using, because if these take off, you can tear up the threads, and then you really do need a new carburetor. So I always start them off pretty gently when I'm making sure the threads stick. That way you feel the least little resistance and you stop. Let's go through and make sure we're good. Bump, 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 and bump. And we should be good to go. And that sounds pretty good. So let's put the bottom back together. When you're doing the bottom, it's gasket, diaphragm. See if this has got a hook. It does. Very nice. The silver part goes towards the motor. So it's gasket, or I'm sorry, metering diaphragm going on this part, then gasket, then gasket. There we go. And this particular one's only got 2 holes. Don't really care how many holes it's got. And you'll note there's a little extra notch here that goes into. Let's drop our screws in. And put her all back together. Easily peasily. So if somebody tells you that rebuilding carburetor is hard, it's really not. The hardest part is making sure you get the exact right gasket. And if you were doing this at home, what I would do is get the number on the carburetor, this little W50A in this case. W50? Yeah. And take that number when you order your gaskets and make sure you get the right one. And take the gaskets out of the carburetor and take a look at them and make sure that, like holding that up next to the computer, if it says it's the right carburetor, that doesn't mean it is. Compare this to the one on the screen and make sure you look at every single little hole. You can see if I hold it against the white, there's lots of little holes and whatnot in here. Every one of them is just as important as the other ones. So, easily peasily. Let's take a look at that linkage. That spring doesn't appear to be returning as easily as it should. Okay, we've got this running a lot smoother than it was before. Could have been a little piece of grime in here. Could have been just about anything. So let's go ahead and get her back together. We went ahead and attached our choke lever. Now, this is our fuel line. And usually the return line is the one closest to the primer on a weed eater or chainsaw carburetor. Well, chainsaws usually don't have the primer on the carburetor though. But if the primer is on the carburetor, it's very likely that the one closest to the primer is going to be your return line. Okay, switch. Okay, guys. This is the part where I like these better than having screws that go into the carburetor. The nuts are always a lot easier to put on. Okay. Let's put some fuel in her and test her. Where's my gas cap? Right there. Where's my fuel at? Right here. And probably half the messes I make working on these are when I'm filling up the fuel tanks. So pay attention when you're filling up the fuel tank. Now this one doesn't have a pull cord. We did that earlier, though. We put a new cord on it. I just didn't get around to putting an end on it yet. Okay, we're priming, we're priming, we're priming. Nothing's happening. Coming or what? There we go. And the way it's sitting, at the angle it's sitting, not much comes through. Okay. We're going to use our aftermarket starter. Try to get her to turn over. Now we're going to do a little bit of adjustment. Oh, that was the wrong direction. Now we're going to turn the idle up just a little bit. Just a touch. So that we can adjust the bottom end correctly. And we're going to miss. So let's start her up again. She does start well. I like it on that. We're just going to turn the idle up just a tiny bit. And that's it. We've rebuilt the carburetor and she's good to go. I just have to find an air filter for her, which I think this one matches. That'll do. I'm pretty happy with the way that came out. And once I put her stick back in place, she's a full-blown pole saw. Pretty cool. I picked this up with a 6-foot end on it. I was pretty amused with that. Now I suppose we should put a little handle on it. I don't want to give my pliers away with the weed eater, or I'm sorry, with the pole saw. Even though we're working on a pole saw today, pole saws, weed eaters, you know, the little blowers, they've all got the same little motors on them. They're identical. So anything you saw today would apply to one of those also. So for all you new people out there, if you haven't done it already, go ahead and subscribe. It's still free. We'll see you next time.